All right. See a good contingent of folks coming in. Great. I'll wait for a few more to enter and then we'll get rolling. And I think we'll call it ready to start now. Does that sound good, Austin?
Yep, we're all set.
All right. Well, so good morning. I'm glad that you're all able to join us here today for the Hearing the Diverse Voices of AAEA webinar. I'm Andrew Sowell, Weed Outlook Coordinator for USDA's Economic Research Service. As the ERS representative for the Mentoring Committee, I'll be moderating today's discussion, and I look forward to hearing from our panelists as I think the lessons and perspectives that they're going to share will be a really good outlook on some of the agricultural economics related positions that are available within USDA. We'll hear from three panelists today, two from ERS and one from the Foreign Agricultural Service. The first panelist, Vidalina Abadam, has worked with ERS for about 2 years and serves as our Sugar Outlook Coordinator. The next panelist, Lazaro Sandoval, can provide perspectives on life abroad and the Foreign Service of FAS. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Kate Vaiknoras, who works for ERS in a research role. I'm grateful in advance to all of our panelists for taking the time to share their stories. We'll have about 10 minutes for each of them and then about 30 minutes for discussion at the end. Without further ado, I'll get things started with Vida. The microphone is yours to share your story.
Thanks, Andy. I'm sharing my screen now. Share screen. Here we go. Let me see if you can see my slides. Great. Thanks, Andy. And I apologize in advance because I'm using a loaner laptop and my video is not working. So Andy suggested I just put a snippet of my picture in the first slide. So this is me. And thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. So as a snapshot, I'm originally from the Philippines. So you could see the map here. If I could just move this one over. From the big island of Luzon, and that's about 2 hours away from Manila. And when I was growing up, I played competitive tennis, and I'm mentioning that here because I grew up with coaches who trained and mentored me, and I thought that was automatic going through my career. So it took some time to realize that in reality, we have to work to proactively seek out mentors and develop relationship with our colleagues. So that was, it took me a long time to realize that. And as Andy mentioned, I'm with ERS since October 2021, and I'm handling the Sugar and Sweeteners Outlook portfolio. I'm a military spouse. My husband is in the Navy, and we have a 5-year-old son. And I consider 2021 to be the year of my life changing events, because not only did I move to ERS, but I finally decided to pursue a part-time PhD in public policy at George Mason University. And on top of that, my husband was stationed in Bremerton, Washington, across the country. So I'm basically taking care of my son full-time. So just to give a short background of my beginnings, I grew up in a small research town in Laguna that's called Los Baños. So it is home to several institutes and research organizations, such as the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, the International Rice Research Institute or ERI, and the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, or SHRCA. And I'm also from a research-oriented family. This started with my grandfather, my mom's dad, who pursued his PhD in agriculture. My parents are entomologists and both have their PhDs, and actually fell in love during graduate school. 4 of my mother's siblings also have their PhDs in agricultural-related fields, and my youngest brother has a PhD in plant science from Virginia Tech. And I'm mentioning this only because this family background played a role in my indecision of whether I'm going to pursue a PhD. I cannot disentangle during my younger years if I was 100% sure that this is what I want in my career and not just following a family tradition. So I wanted to share that in case we have folks in our audience who might be in the same boat as was me. So I wasn't sure what to take as a course in college, but I'm sure it is not something related to biological sciences. I remember hating high school biology where we had to dissect frogs, and I think I'm forever scarred by that experience. I was instead drawn to social sciences and decided to pursue economics. During my fourth year in college, I saw a conference flyer from Shirka, one of the international organization in the campus. And if I remember correctly, it's about an IPM conference, so Integrated Pest Management. Well, I was riding the jeepney. So this is what the jeepney looks like in the Philippines, in case you're interested. And I always pass by Shirka, but for some reason that day, I decided to go to that conference. And it's not necessarily intended for college students. And I even had to miss a class. But it's just hard to explain, but it's one of those things when you feel the universe is trying to tell you something. So I guess in this, my message is in case that happens, it pays to listen to your instinct. And then it just so happened one of the speakers in that conference was Dr. George Norton, and I think I saw him join today. So he eventually became my master's advisor at Virginia Tech. Hello, Dr. Norton, if you're there. And after graduating, I worked for 1 year at PhilRice, the Philippine Rice Research Institute, which is the counterpart of ERIE, local counterpart of ERIE in the Philippines. And so I applied to several schools and got offered graduate research assistantship. But that initial that conference where I saw Dr. Norton made me decide to go to Virginia Tech. And so I included a picture of the Virginia Tech drill field here because it was a reminder that relocating to the US was a big adjustment for me, considering that I didn't leave home for college at all. I was homesick. Winter was hard since I only know of 2 seasons, dry and rainy. I had to learn the simplest things like putting on lip balm and moisturizer during winter after my lips and skin cracked so bad. And even though English was my second language, I realized I was still forming my thoughts in Tagalog. That's my local language, then translating it back to English. So my brain was doing more processing, and it takes more time for me to communicate with people. And so I had to walk that red line, that path from my off-campus housing to reach the Hutchison Hall, the Ag Economics Department, on a daily basis. And I shed a lot of tears in that field, but I actually kept a picture of this pinned on my wall even up to these days to remind me. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's a reminder that when things get really hard, it will eventually get better. So I still keep this picture to this day. And then things did get better. I actually met my husband at Virginia Tech. He was doing the Virginia Tech ROTC program. And then I conducted my thesis on the economic impact analysis of marker-assisted breeding in rice. And I actually got to go back home for fieldwork and data gathering. So the big question was towards the end of my master's thesis was to pursue a PhD or not. Dr. Norton was very encouraging that I can definitely do it. But again, I wanted to be certain if this is what I want in my career. And now in hindsight, I realize I wasn't opposed to pursuing an advanced degree, but I was just simply looking for something that has a more applied nature to it. And I eventually found that at ERS. So before getting employment in USDA, I worked with the International Food Policy Research Institute for 4 years. And I was there. It was a really great training ground for me. I was able to co-author several discussion papers and book chapters. I honed my skills in project collaboration, as well as data processing and analysis using softwares like Stata. And I experienced organizing international conferences in Ghana and Nepal. And in Nepal, I learned a valuable lesson that I wish I can tell my younger self, or maybe some of our younger folks in the audience. Because when I was organizing the conference, I met my family's former landlord in the Philippines. And it turns out all this time when we were renting from his apartment that he was an economic consultant with an international organization. And I would always see him in the neighborhood. He was friendly, but I was too busy and wrapped up with my academics or curricular activities that I didn't even took the time to talk with him and just ask him regular questions about his life story, how we are doing it now, how we are sharing this, and especially the obvious question of why was he so rich? He has all these apartments that we're renting from, and I would actually be maybe have a mentor early on in my career. I'm not sure if he's going to be willing to be a mentor, but it would have been worth a try. So I'm just sharing that valuable lesson, and that's why I applaud AAEA for having this diverse voices series, because it encourages us to learn to stop, take a pause, ask question, and learn a thing or two about each other's experiences. So after 4 years with IFPRI, I was still unsure if I will pursue a PhD. And in a workplace like that, you don't get a lot of opportunities for advancement as much as you would if you have a PhD. So I decided to have a change in environment and found employment in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, where I helped produce monthly employment numbers for the states and metro areas. This was very important during that time because the country was just recovering from recession. And so employment is one of the variables the government is tracking. And I also worked with producing the Occupational Outlook Handbook, or colloquially known as OOH, which is one of the most popular BLS products because it provides information for making career decisions like the average salary, projected growth, current hiring trends, and educational requirements for, say, an economist. So one memorable experience, which I'm going to share with you, is that where I always like to volunteer. And when I volunteer to be the phone duty coordinator in our division, because we get a lot of calls from the public about the numbers, how we derive them, where to find them. It turned out I was the only one out of like the 30 employees who volunteered. But that was the first time, I guess, I maybe experienced unconscious bias, because instead of assigning it to me, they did assign it to me, but they had to pair me up with someone more senior, because maybe looking back, they weren't sure if I can handle the task that as simple as that. So my response was to accept the reality and just work hard and show that I guess work extra harder to show that I can do the stuff that they expect me to do. So I'm just sharing that even though it cannot be avoided, I guess, in some places. After BLS, I applied to USDA, Farm Service Agency, or FSA for short. And I learned about the position because a close colleague from BLS applied there and got a position herself. So through recommendation, I was able to also apply for the job, which is very attractive because it goes to a GS-14 level, which is very hard to come by. And I'm sharing that because there's really a value in maintaining relationships with our colleagues and in references. So when I was at FSA, I helped manage the U.S. sugar program, which is mandated by the Farm Bill. So basically, we have a floor price for the sugar in the U.S. and import quotas and domestic production quotas, such that we have relatively healthy prices for the producer. So that's a quick overview of the program. And during this time, I helped brief leadership, including the undersecretary and administrator, on the market situation and policy options. So the question we have to brief them is, for example, are additional imports needed into the US? And if not, how much? So it's a very political question. And this is where I learned to keep it simple, especially for decision makers who don't have the time to understand our complex methodologies. And it's also during this time when I had to provide technical assistance to the Department of Commerce on the U.S.-Mexico suspension agreements. And the highlight of my stay there, I consider, is when I helped conduct a cost-benefit analysis of COVID-related assistance, because again, I think I'm drawn towards work that have direct impacts. So I really enjoyed being part of that ad hoc team at USDA. And I wanted to share that I was able to be tapped to join the team because I constantly remind my branch chief. I had an open communication that I would be interested in teams, such ad hoc teams like this. But if I didn't let her know that, then she might have passed me over for that opportunity. So again, the message is our bosses, the higher ups are busy in their own world, and it is up to us to be proactive in looking out for ourselves. And the icing on the top was that the USDA team who conducted the analysis was awarded the 2021 AAEA Bruce Gardner Memorial Prize. After about 5.5 years at Farm Service Agency, an opportunity presented itself at ERS, and it presented itself twice. So when I couldn't apply for the first time because I was just, I just gave birth to my son. When it presented a second time, I think, again, it was the universe telling me a message that maybe you should apply for the position. And so I got the position, and that's what I'm doing now, the coordinator of the Sugar and Sweeteners Market Program. And this is basically what I help produce every month. We're in a production cycle. We produce the balance sheet for the U.S. sugar supply and use. So I help in forecasting the numbers for each of those variables, the production, imports, use, and eventually ending stocks. And so we also do that exercise for Mexico. So that's the majority of what I do now. And then 4 working days after the WASI, I have to write and publish the Outlook report, which explains in detail the assumptions and the market conditions that go behind these numbers. So all the training I got at BLS and IFPRI trained me to do this job because it's a really fast turnaround, and you have to be you have to deliver on a deadline, and you have to pay close attention to the numbers. And then suddenly, when I was not thinking about it, I finally decided I am ready, and I found utility in pursuing PhD because the sugar market has gotten complicated. I realized I need to acquire additional skill set to do my job. And in ERS, I realized I can have real life and real time application of the research that I'll do. And the ERS provides a conducive environment in terms of publication outlets, numerous research topics, the resources, the data is there, the software is there. and I have great colleagues who I can do a back and forth of research ideas. Basically, I can feed two birds with one seed. I didn't want killing two birds with one stone, so I chose this one instead. And just this month's outlook, I was able to ask my colleague, a GIS specialist, to create a map, a drought map in Mexico, where we added where the Mexican mills are and what are these yields. So this is very helpful for the sugar industry in general in terms of the market conditions. So this makes me excited, and it gave me the push I needed to finally decide I am in for a PhD 100%. And so the takeaways is that I can share in my short career is that seek out mentors and be a mentor. When Andrew asked me to join this panel, I was hesitant because I know that the previous panelists are one of the biggest giants in our agricultural economics field. And I was thinking, what can I offer that you don't know already? But I go by this mantra from Bill Nye, who is famous, who I got to know because he's doing these videos about science for kids. So now that I have a kid, I got to know him. And he said, everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. So I hope today you learned something from my experience, and that we are our biggest advocate. My husband always reminds me all they can say is no. Just ask for travel money, for a budget to attend a conference, because at the end of the day, all they can say is no. Just don't assume that they will say no. Just go ahead and ask it and give the ball on their court. And be professional, do not burn bridges. I really live by that rule, because throughout our career, we will change employment, and that would only be possible if we, stayed professional, and we keep in good terms with our former colleagues, and that's what helped me move to ERS. And then have a growth mindset and continuously evolve. So seek and accept constructive criticism. So I know I'm not the best presenter, especially when I'm up there on the stage, but I would be, I would swallow my pride and ask my closest colleagues what else I can do to be better. And then it's never too late to pursue graduate studies or even trainings for improvement. Because these days, universities like in the DC, Virginia, Maryland metro area, they're very accommodating to full-time workers. I was actually pleasantly surprised that there are several students like me who were working full-time and doing their part-time PhDs. And then seek out opinions, but listen to your gut. I constantly ask colleagues, former professors, if I should take a PhD, but at the end of the day, it will fall back on you, and you have to listen to your gut. And then for some folks who might be questioning if parenthood can be a positive impact in careers, I can tell you it's really, really hard. The hardest a job I ever did, but in my experience, it actually helped my career. Being a parent who is responsible for another human being, as I said, is the hardest job. So that puts everything else in perspective. I'm actually more nervous to keep it together in front of my son than presenting to the administrator or the undersecretary. And it gives me a different sense of purpose, or stop me from being too perfectionist at the job when the data is not, it's not there to do your analysis, because at the end of the day, there's something more important that needs your attention, and it just gives you, like it's okay. You can compartmentalize and move on. So that's it for me. I hope I give you some ideas from my experience. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Great to hear more about your background, learning more about that. And I love that you mentioned Dr. Norton, because Vida and I have a funny connection, because as I was meeting her and we were talking, this was when I was at FAS and she was at FSA several years back, and we started talking about where she went to school and what year she was there, and and then realized we were there at the same time. And then she said who her professor was, and then it clicked in my head that she had been my teaching assistant in Dr. Norton's class. And so we had that connection from years and years before. And the interesting thing about that as well, Dr. Norton's class was also a major point in my life as well, because he in that classroom was announcing these international internship opportunities to Ecuador, which I took it. I took it that year. I went back actually a total of 3 more times. It framed a huge portion of my career and my personal development. My Spanish wouldn't be nearly as good if not for that experience. And I thank Dr. Norton for the leadership he provided there. So I am going to pass the microphone off to our next speaker. Lazaro is going to give us a perspective of USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, and in particular the of that. Microphone's yours.
Thanks so much, Andy. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Let me just get the presentation going. Just 1 second. Great. So my name is Lazaro Sandoval. I'm the Senior Agricultural Attaché based out of the U.S. mission to the EU here in Brussels, Belgium. And it's an absolute honor to be with all of you here today. I'm really looking forward to also learning about the folks that are online, and I hope to take this opportunity to maybe give you guys an overview of an agency that sometimes isn't that well known within the USDA, and that's the Foreign Agricultural Service. Give you a sort of an overview also of what I've done with a 13-year career at the Foreign Ag Service, and then also I'm very open to any questions that you may have about working there, and happy to pass on any career or student opportunities available to any of you. So let's get started. So as mentioned before, I'll give a quick overview of the Foreign Ag Service. I'll talk about me. I'll then talk, sort of as the previous speaker did, give some career tips and concluding thoughts, and then I'll go over some of the student and recent graduate opportunities that are available as well. So let's move on. So a lot of people don't know this, but actually within the U.S. Department of Agriculture, there's an agency called the Foreign Agricultural Service. We're essentially the international wing of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And our mission is to link U.S. agriculture to the world, to enhance export opportunities for our farmers and ranchers, but to also enhance global security. And our experts, given the fact that we're such a huge producer of food and such a huge net exporter of food, our exports are vital for a lot of sensitive markets and regions around the world that don't necessarily have the same capacity to grow food for themselves, and they rely on suppliers like us. In order to do that work, we focus on things like trade policy, also market development and export assistance, data and analysis. This is actually where I met Andy. Andy and I, years ago, worked for the Office of Global Analysis within the Foreign Agricultural Service. We also do, we have a part of our work that focuses on international development, essentially trying to help build the capacity of countries around the world to produce more, to also have better statistics, to be able to also trade in the international system. And then one of the newer areas that we're focusing on now is climate change and sustainability. As we all know, the issue of climate change, it can't be done in a vacuum by any single country. And so one of the things that we're now doing under the Foreign Agricultural Service is greater international collaboration on the subject of mitigating and adapting to climate change at the farm level. And we're also doing a lot of collaboration on the area of sustainability. That is, how can we help producers globally produce more with less? This is just a quick overview of why ag trade matters. You know, it supports over 1 million jobs in the United States. It produces a lot of economic activity. The value of U.S. ag exports are over 135 billion. I think this is slightly outdated. I think it's close to 145 billion now. And then where are we? So the Foreign Agricultural Service, it's a global network of ag economists, marketing experts, negotiators, and specialists. And we have about 90 offices around the world covering 150 countries. So all the countries in red that you can see here, this is where we have a physical presence. And then the countries in sort of the orange are countries that we cover from a regional post. So we cover most countries around the world. And then we have a pretty big office in Washington where we have about 900 employees, mostly analysts, trade specialists, etc. And this is just a video, some photos of some of the folks within the Foreign Agricultural Service. As you can see here, we have folks in China working hard on promoting greater bilateral ties with the Chinese government, plus greater trade. We also do some food assistance, for example, in places like Haiti and also in certain parts of West Africa. Down here, you see one of our former administrators at a trade show helping promote U.S. food products. Down here, image in Pakistan, where we're actually doing a lot of work in helping them produce better cotton. So this just gives you an idea of just sort of the full range of things that we do. And then a little bit about me. I'm originally from Santa Cruz, California, on the coast. I have a bachelor's degree in, I studied ag business and ag economics at Cal State University, Fresno, in the famous Central Valley of California. I have a master's degree in international commerce and policy from George Mason. We're actually focused a little bit more on financial economics. I'm an alum of USDA's Hispanic Serving Institutions and also Career Pathways programs. And in many ways, I think I'm in my dream job because I've always been interested ever since I was in really high school, because that's really where I started my agricultural education, interested in the intersection of agriculture and international affairs, and FAS is sort of the place for that. And I love to travel, I love to read, I love to watch movies, and of course spend time with family. So from here, I'm going to give you guys an overview of just sort of the different things that I've done within FAS, both in Washington, out of our headquarters, and then around the world, just to kind of show you just how different all roles can be. So while I was in Washington, I was essentially an ag economist, an analyst. Initially, working on the commodity analysis side, I was responsible for the poultry portfolio, and had the chance to travel around the world, including the UAE, Brazil, and other places, to do market analysis on the opportunities for U.S. poultry, and also just better understanding global poultry markets. And that analysis was then converted into the World Markets and Trade Report, specifically the poultry section. Thanks to the fact that I had an econ background and spoke fluent Spanish because of my background, I was also kind of brought into other projects within FAS. So our Office of Capacity Building and Development had me assist them in a capacity building program on developing better market information systems for Central American countries a couple of years ago. And thanks to also this work, I had the opportunity to be invited to be a part of other things. I was in Paris, where I got to be a part of a leadership program there. And my final year in DC in 2014, 2015, I also had the chance to work with the division within FAS that helps with WTO negotiations. So I was a part of the team that was helping with negotiations of the Nairobi round of 2015. Then it was in 2014 that I took the Foreign Service Assessment, and I was invited to be a part of the Foreign Service. And my first post, I was very, very lucky, was Argentina. I was there from 2015 to 2019. As you can see here, I got to do a combination of different things and got to, shake the hand of Obama or take a selfie with Pence, or even President Trump mentioned my name and gave us kudos for opening up the market for U.S. pork and beef in the Argentine market while I was there. A lot of the stuff that we were doing at the time was focused on trade promotion. So again, finding new opportunities for U.S. products, trade policy, as I mentioned before, working with our Argentine counterparts in opening up the market for our products, and also facilitating the entry of their products as well. It was during that time that Argentine lemons made it into the U.S. market for the first time. Also, a lot of market intelligence work. Even though Argentina is not a big market, it is a big competitor. So a large part of my work, about a third of my work in Argentina, was just analyzing Argentina's oilseeds market. It's one of the biggest oilseed producers in the world. And so it was absolutely amazing work where, I got to do 1,000-mile road trips around the country, going from one end of the country to the other, meeting with farmers, understanding their plight, and and then bringing that input into all the reporting that we were doing. Also got to do a little bit of capacity building as well. When we were there, the Argentine government was interested in bettering their agricultural statistics. And so we worked with ERS, the National Ag Statistics Service. We brought them in order to help the Argentine government with that. After that, I was then sent to India, where I got to manage our Office of Agricultural Affairs in Mumbai. India is a massive market, as some of you may know. It's the fastest growing country right now. It's now the most populous country officially, and so a lot of the work we were doing was trade promotion. As you can see here, I'm busy promoting Washington apples here, also promoting fantastic California wines and other spirits. But also I think one of the things I was really proud of the work that I did in India was we did a significant amount of technical cooperation and capacity building. Historically speaking, a lot of times there wasn't much technical collaboration between the Indian government and the United States. But luckily, I was able to secure an MOU between the state of Maharashtra, which is the state that Mumbai is the capital of, and we signed an MOU in order to assist them in bettering their market information systems and also allowing them to develop better post-harvesting techniques that USDA would assist them with. And these are just a couple of photos of some of those travels. Right here, there's a lovely photo of a wonderful village in Chhattisgarh, where we met with women farmers who were specifically interested in USDA cooperation in biomass energy production. So for example, using cow dung, also using the residues of rice husk for energy generation as well. And I was there during COVID, so obviously it was a tough time, but we got a lot done during that time. We even did virtual events during that time as well. I'm now in Belgium, and here what I'm focusing on is work with the European Union. All of you are familiar with sort of the work that the European Union does. It's a supranational organization that that's comprised of 27 member states across the European continent. This has probably been the most sort of interesting job that I've had so far within FAS because yes, we do trade policy, yes, we do market promotion, but we're also doing a lot of, I guess, what you would call more high-level policy stuff. So for example, it's been a real honor for me, especially this past year, to work a lot on Ukraine. So one of the things that we're doing between the US government and the European Union is making sure that Ukrainian grain can get out of Ukraine through what's called the EU Solidarity Lane so that it can make it to vital markets in Northern Africa and the Middle East. And we're also doing food security collaboration in general. And in addition to that, as some of you may know, the United States and the EU are sort of on the vanguard when it comes to finding ways to mitigate and adapt to the impact of climate change. And so working with the European Union on sort of how can we help farmers or how do we demonstrate to farmers the incentives to produce more sustainably through financial incentives and other mechanisms. Not to make this too long, because I think I'm just over my 10 minutes, but just to kind of sum up a couple of career tips, and these kind of echo what the previous speaker talked about. I think based on my 13-year career now, I would say, I definitely recommend that all of you stay informed. You'll find out, and by stay informed, also stay educated. Everything around you affects your life and work, so stay as informed as you are, and you need to be informed to make informed decisions, of course. I would also like to say that if you commit to something, follow through. You really want to be professional and develop a good rapport with your colleagues, and you want them to be able to trust you. Also, and this was also mentioned before, don't be afraid to ask for help. Seek mentors. You'd be surprised just how much people want to help you in your career. So do not be afraid to ask for help. Then another thing is mistakes will happen, and the best thing you can do is learn from them and press forward. I made plenty of mistakes, but I learned from them and went forward. And it reminds me of one of my bosses, what he used to say. And he used to say, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not really learning. You're not really progressing. Concluding thoughts. I've worked for USDA for over a third of my life now, and I expect to do so for many years to come. It's been really a fulfilling and life-changing experience. I met my spouse thanks to the Foreign Service in Argentina. I'm also specifically very passionate about this career because every day is different, and no day is the same. I'm constantly learning and growing professionally, being exposed to different topics and issues that I never would have considered. And I definitely recommend it as a career for anyone looking for an intriguing, fulfilling, and I would have to say really a fun career experience, because it's really been a blast. Now, for those of you that are interested in FAS, we have, for example, the FAS International Ag Internship Program. So if any of you are interested in interning in one of our offices overseas, we have this program available for all of you. I actually did this program back in 2010 after I graduated from undergrad. I did it in our office in Mexico City. Last year, we had a student from Tufts here in Brussels. And then a new program that we have that's really exciting is the FAS International Agricultural Fellowship. I wish they would have had this when I was a student, but essentially this provides students a full ride for their graduate degree, specifically their master's degree in ag economics or a related field. And then in addition to the full ride, you then during the summers get to come to Washington to intern at our office. And then I believe the second summer you then get to do an international internship at one of our overseas offices. So really great opportunities are available for any of you interested in this. And then finally, just wanted to say thank you. If any of you are interested in FAS, feel free to contact me if you want to learn more about it. If you'd like to have a call just to kind of understand, what we do, some of the opportunities, I'm more than happy to assist you in any way that I can. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A section. Thank you.
All right. Well, want to thank both speakers we had so far. Great to hear from all of your experiences. And last, I'll pass the microphone over to Kate Vaiknoras to hear more about her research background and her work at ERS.
Hi, everyone. Just trying to get my slideshow going. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andy, and thanks to Lazaro and Vida. I really enjoyed hearing your stories and about your careers. I'm going to tell you a bit about my own educational and career journey, going from growing up in Massachusetts, not a very agricultural place, to grad school in Virginia, which is near where I took this photo, and then here at the USDA. And I am a research agricultural economist here at ERS. So I grew up near Boston. Growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Liked kind of writing, social sciences. I thought maybe journalism, but didn't really have a concrete plan. I ended up going to Smith College, which is a small liberal arts women's college in Western Massachusetts. It's a good place for someone who doesn't know what they want to do, because there's a lot of opportunity to learn kind of different areas and not a lot of pressure to declare a major really fast. I took an econ class almost by accident. My first semester, I signed up for a different course that I really just didn't like, and needed to find something that fit in my schedule. And Introduction to Microeconomics was one of the very few things that did. And I unexpectedly really liked it. I never thought of myself as a mathy, businessy kind of person, which is what I sort of thought of econ, but pretty quickly kind of saw that the tools and concepts that you learn in economics could really be applied to almost any real world application. And that was really interesting to me. And then also in college, I just pursued lots of different coursework, opportunities like volunteer opportunities and summer jobs, just anything that just piqued my interest. I kind of just tried it. A lot of those things did end up being kind of geared or related to agriculture or international development. Prior to that, I didn't have any background or particular experience in agriculture, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with any of this really. Then my graduation weekend, I happened to meet like a friend of a friend who was in town, an alum from my college who was getting her PhD in agricultural economics. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. It just seemed to be the perfect thing to kind of match my econ, like academic background with a lot of the interests that I was developing. And so that was really exciting. It was like a light bulb going off. And I already had a different job, unrelated job lined up after college. So I worked there for a couple of years, but always knew that I wanted to go back to school and really kept this field in mind. So when it was time to apply to grad school, I did more research on agricultural economics and just really thought that it was the right field for me. I applied to several different schools for my master's degree. I didn't know if I wanted to do a PhD. I was interested in it, but it seemed daunting. I didn't really know a lot of people who had their PhDs. So I don't know, just like I said, seemed kind of daunting, but when I visited the program at Virginia Tech, I had a really good experience and got to meet like lots of different people and ask tons and tons of questions. And so I decided to go there for my master's degree. After I started an opportunity with George Norton for a research project on conservation tillage in Uganda. So hi, George. I didn't expect you to Vida to talk so much about George Norton as well. And he was my master's thesis advisor, and he was really encouraging for me to go on and get my PhD. So that kind of gave me the confidence that I could do it and that it was the right path for me. And I'm glad that I did that. And here's just, I also have a picture of the Virginia Tech campus. Here's a nice tree that would always turn this really beautiful gold red color in the fall. And I walked by this tree just about every day for several years. So I decided to do my PhD, and I did decide to stay at Virginia Tech because I was really happy there. Both personally, I was happy living in Blacksburg, and I was really happy with the AgriCon program there as well. My research continued to focus on international development. I had the opportunity to do survey work in Rwanda and in Nepal. And I didn't get to spend a lot of time in Rwanda, but I spent quite a bit of time in Nepal doing survey work there on stress tolerant rice varieties. And here's a picture of a rice field from Lamjung district in Nepal, which is where I did my field work. I did 3 trips there. One was with George Norton, and then I went 2 other times later in the year. I got to teach a class in grad school. In addition to lots of TA work, I taught a course on my own, and that was a really good experience. I would recommend that to graduate students if you have the opportunity. I think it first tells you if you like teaching, which is really important, and I think it helps hone your communication skills as well. And overall, I really had a lot of fun in grad school. I really enjoyed myself and had a good time. Of course, things like coursework and exams were very stressful at times, but I made a lot of friends. I continued to work with George Norton and also had a great relationship with my PhD advisor, who was Catherine La Rochelle. Generally enjoyed the coursework and even studying at times. Met my husband, got married. So just, these were years throughout my 20s where there was a lot of personal and professional growth. And it was a really good time in my life. The shift to my professional career happened kind of between 2019 and 2020. It was dramatic in a way. There was a lot going on. In the summer of 2019, so I was kind of getting ready to graduate. This was the time that ERS was moving or about to move to Kansas City. And so my husband and I are both from the East Coast, had spent our whole lives on the East Coast. We didn't know anything about Kansas City or this whole region of the country, really. But I had always been interested in working for ERS. It had been on my mind, in my eye for quite a while. It appealed to me. It was really important that my work be sort of policy relevant and important. And ERS seemed like a good place for that. I had talked to a lot of people over the years who did or had worked at ERS, and they had said great things about work-life balance and it being a really good environment. So I was very highly interested in working at ERS. And at the 2019 AAEA meeting, I believe in Atlanta, I talked to lots of people there about what it was like to work there, how it was going with the relocation and everything. And I started to really research Kansas City and kind of learn that even though it's a new place for us, it seemed like the kind of place where we maybe could be happy. And in fact, we are very happy here. And then in fall of 2019, I defended my dissertation in September. I interviewed at ERS, I think 3 days later. I was 7 months pregnant, and 2 months later, I had a baby. And here is a picture just after graduation of me and my then 1-month-old daughter, Evelyn, and my husband. And I have since then had another baby named Max. And then, so I took a few months kind of off, sort of an unpaid maternity leave for myself, which was really nice. But then in the spring of 2020, you know, it was time to get going. We bought a house here near Kansas City. We moved halfway across the country. I started a new job, and this was all at the start of the global pandemic. So it was a kind of a crazy, crazy time. So I've been at ERS now for about 3.5 years, always in the same research agricultural economist position. I really like it here. I think all the time I get to learn new things, which is really interesting. I'm in a different area of research than what I focused on in grad school. A lot of my research is on U.S. commodity costs and returns. There's lots of other topics too, but you know, prior to starting here, I really didn't have any experience with U.S. commodities. But I've enjoyed learning about a new area of research and really being able to take some of the skills, you know, and topics from international development and thinking about them in a U.S. context. I get to do some writing for non-academic readers. ERS publishes a number of different kinds of publications. So I still do journal articles, but I also do ERS reports, and here's a screenshot of a report that I recently published. And then we also have other publications for a more general audience, like our Amber Waves magazine. And I've also gotten to learn some new statistical software, gotten some experience in SAS and R, which I had used only a little bit at Virginia Tech in grad school. That being said, my grad school experience is still relevant every day. I still do lots of academic writing, econometrics all the time, still use data, you know, et cetera. And I'm still in touch with lots of friends and professors from grad school. So, you know, that time of my life is definitely still relevant. And so I like that I've been able to take what I learned in grad school and grow, right, and learn new things, but still it's an extension of that. If I had advice to give to people, personally, I like to have a plan, but I think it's good to not be afraid to do something different. You know, lots of times in my life, things that I didn't know about, right, like the entire field of ag econ, right, suddenly I'm aware of, and it's good to have the flexibility to shift gears a little bit. I think it's good to pay attention to what you like and what you don't like all the time. Sometimes this can be unexpected, right? I didn't expect to like economics, but I ended up liking it quite a lot. I think it's important to make friends and get to know people at school, work, etc. I actually don't like the word networking. It always makes me feel stressed out. But if I just think of it as making friends and getting to know people, then it's much more pleasant to me. So just lots of people, like, you know, talk to people, tell them what they're interested in, what you're interested in, you know, learn about their experiences. It's really, really important. And at the same time, it's crucial, I think, to maintain relationships outside of school and work. Just to, I don't know, I just think it's a healthy thing to do. And then relatedly, I think it's important to remember to develop personally as well as professionally. That can be hard, especially in grad school when it's sort of very demanding, but I'm proud that, you know, over those years in grad school and beyond, that I was able to kind of develop different areas of my life. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you, and feel free to get in touch if you'd like to chat or learn more about careers at ERS. And I will pass. I will stop sharing.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And then when you, we'll be back into panel mode here. So if there's questions out there, you can direct towards any of our panelists. Anyone out in the audience wants to turn a camera on, it'll be just like making friends, and that's just something we can do. So, and I'm very grateful for everyone sharing things here. Yeah, I guess actually I'd be interested to hear about, until questions start pouring in, I've got a few, things I can tee up. What's work-life balance like for you all? I guess we can kind of go in presentation order. Vida, Lazaro, then Kate.
All right, I'll take a shot, but that's probably not existent for me right now because I'm doing the part-time PhD, but still I'm still happy where I am at ERS again because it's very conducive to the PhD environment. So work-life balance means I'm able to finish work during the day and take care of my son and then do my homeworks in the evening. So I'm still alive, so it's still working out.
In my case, it's interesting because I mean, when you're in the Foreign Service, you're in many ways, you going overseas to take on a particular responsibility. I mean, kind of the job becomes your life just to some extent. And so, as a diplomat, you're going to be invited to a lot of events, a lot of receptions and everything like that. But I think a lot of that's really fun and interesting and really enriching. A lot of them, for example, in India and in Argentina, I was able to bring my wife. So a lot of these work events became social. And for example, around the world, there's a culture to actually mix business with pleasure or mix business with family or with friends. And so actually I found all those things enriching and I have a lot of friends around the world thanks to that. I love what I do, so a lot of times I do work additional hours and I check my emails a lot of times, but I think that's only a really reflection of sort of my own preferences. I have other colleagues that are a little bit more strict, and after 5 or 6 p.m. they don't really look at emails, and unless it's an emergency, they don't take a look. So I guess it also depends on the person. I will say though, and I know that this is an issue for really all professional environments, after COVID, given I think the overworked sort of experiences we were all going through, I know my agency and others in the government are doing a lot more to make sure that people keep in mind and are cognizant of maintaining a work-life balance. So I definitely appreciate that across USDA there's a lot more focus on that and also providing those flexibilities. For example, we just had a baby here about a month ago, and I'm on parental leave. This was not the case just a few years ago, and so again, just showing you that within the USDA there is a lot of flexibility granted so that we can try to achieve the best possible work-life balance available, even though some folks, including myself, don't always necessarily take advantage of it.
So I'll finish up quick. So work-life balance is really important to me, and I think I have really good work-life balance. At the end of the day, I turn my computer off and I do not check my emails. I do not check them on weekends. It helps that it takes a few minutes for my laptop to load up. So the barrier, I'm not doing it. So I really like it. I like being able to focus and work hard during the day. And then at the end of the day, play with my kids or rest or do what I need to do.
Good. And, I'll speak broadly to, my perspective in ERS as well. It's a very good work-life balance. And, we're predominantly at home. I'm in the office today. So we have a lot of people who are remote workers located all over the country. One of our talking points is we have people in 36 states plus Puerto Rico. So we've got the biggest chunks of people are in DC and Kansas City, and then sporadic through other places. I live near Fredericksburg, and being able to commute, not have to commute as much, allowed me to move farther from the city. And I find the identity, the style of the city is a little more what I was looking for. Finding work-life balance for me means, I have 2 kids at home. So the balance between doing what I got to do as a parent and what I got to do as a job, there's not a ton of time left. But what is there, I try to put a little bit into music, and got myself back into that this year after having spent some time away. If anybody lives in the Fredericksburg area, hit me up and we'll see what we can do musically. But officially this ends at noon, but noon Eastern. but we don't need to break away right at noon. So if anybody has questions, want to turn on camera, want to network or make friends a little bit, there's really no rush. So it can go either way. But I'm really glad for the great responses that you all have had. I'm really grateful for the great presentations that you were giving. I was one of the other sort of thoughts I had is sort of what is there's this quote someone shared from one of the previous iterations of this that say, the more you know who you are and what you want, the less you let things bother you. And that was a quote Bill Murray had from Lost in Translation. And in our work, we really have to be resilient at different times in our career, dealing with, various kinds of adversity. So I don't know, like, does our panelists, does that quote speak to you in some way for something you've had to fight through? I mean, Vita really put it in concrete terms, the idea like, the tears shed across the drill field. And even though I didn't come from a tropical environment, just coming from Eastern Virginia, going to Blacksburg, that drill field can be pretty brutal when it's, when it's freezing rain hitting your face and on your way to classes and stuff. What kind of adversity have you faced in the workforce, and how do you inspire yourself to push past it?
Do we need to go in alphabetical order again?
Sure, why not? It's the easiest way.
Let's see. There's just several, right? But for me, you just have to go back to the basics and to try not to take it personally, because some during a meeting that can be contentious, your coworkers, they might be emotionally charged, and sometimes at the end of the day, it's just that it's nothing personal, and then you just regroup, and then also to address the issue and not let it linger. I had some issues starting with ERS, with some of the staff with posting, but I didn't let that simmer for a long time. I communicated it up the chain, and we were able to resolve it. And now, the workflow is much more, efficient, and we are all getting along each other. I guess, we sometimes gotta nip it in the bud, and sometimes you just need to realize it's just not personal. So.
And that can be a lot harder to communicate in this digital era we're in. When you're putting things in messages, some people may not be sugarcoating, and some people are more blunt than others, and all of a sudden, offense can be taken to something that was totally inoffensive, right? So these things can happen, but that's great. Not taking things personally excessively. Lazaro, anything you want to speak to there?
Sure. I mean, for as a diplomat, I think that the challenge we always have to deal with is how do we work with others from different countries, from different cultures, from different perspectives and worldviews. How do you manage, for example, staff in another country, right, that have another sort of professional culture, cultural context, et cetera. But I mean, I've always found that as long as you're genuine, I mean, that was sort of the best management advice I ever got. When I first went to Argentina, I was 27, and everybody, was older than me, and then I was the deputy of the office, and I kept asking myself, how am I going to get any respect, right? The 27-year-old is all of a sudden going to come in and start telling people what to do. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was, look, be genuine. And if you're a hard worker, people will see it, and they will respond to it. So I'll just say that, you face some of these challenges, but I think as long as you're genuine, and as long as, you're willing to fight for your colleagues, support them as well, then I think you'll be able to find a way through. And I think this is part of the reason why I like working for the federal government so much, especially FAS, is to me, at least in my experience so far, it really does feel like a meritocracy where you know, we don't care what your background is, what your race is, what your culture is, none of that. If you're a performer, if you believe in the mission and you're willing to invest, you're willing to innovate, you're willing to help out, then we will promote you. We will nurture you. We will make sure that you excel because you're interested in promoting our aims. And, you know, this doesn't just go for us officers, for us Americans. You know, we also train and professionally develop our locally employed staff overseas. You know, I sent a lot of my Indian staff to the United States, some staff here in Brussels and also in Argentina to the United States to get educational assistance and other things. You know, when I was at USDA in DC, you know, FAS paid for part of my grad school as well. So again, I think despite all the challenges, the fact that we're an agency that is still there to nurture you, just whatever challenges you face, I think that's sort of the silver lining, and that's what keeps me going.
I'll respond to your quote with another quote from Ted Lasso, or I learned it from Ted Lasso, which is, be curious, not judgmental. And at first I didn't think much of that quote, but then I thought about it. And I think a lot of times when we're facing difficult times, it's easy to be judgmental, to think, oh, this person is difficult, or this situation is impossible, or I'm not smart enough to get through this. But I think if we try to put those thoughts aside and instead think, okay, what is this person's perspective? How can I get through this situation? You know, be curious. I feel like we can work through a lot of situations that might seem difficult. And also, I'll just go back to, you know, maintaining lots of relationships, right? The people who are close to us can help us get through a lot too.
Great. Well, with all of that, I think we had some good chat. We've lost about half of what we had there to start, but we've got a few people hanging around. My thought is, I think, you know, we'll end the formal, you know, section here. I'll stop the recording, but anybody that wants to stay a few minutes after just to catch up, to talk a little bit, we can do that. So I'm going to hit this button to stop recording. To all the people viewing this in the future, goodbye.